Thank you so much for tuning in today. You are listening to Society Bites Radio. My name is Jillian Beth, and I am an intuitive healer and coach on a mission to empower women by reconnecting them to their inner wisdom. And I'm really excited for today's show and guest, and do make sure you stay tuned to the end because she has a special gift for you, our listeners. Now, on today's show, we have Miss Bonnielee. And Bonnielee has dedicated her life to supporting her fellow women, her soul sisters, as she calls them, which I love. Her company, Beautifully Free, awakens women's fierce self love and wild freedom through spirituality. She is also a creator, often collaborating on projects with the women healers and creators that she admires. She has been featured on the Spiritual Boss Babe podcast, Women on Purpose podcast, and StartDis Podcast, along with a health magazine and BuzzFeed, Tiny House magazine. She's all over the place. She has been a speaker at the United Tiny House Festivals and Tiny House Jamboree and Summit. Now, Bonnielee is a proud homeschooling mom. She spent half a decade living as a minimalist, which I think is kind of pretty cool and awesome, in an off-the-grid tiny house homestead. She continues to advocate for eco-friendly and minimalist lifestyles and she has future plans of returning to that living. She is also an avid volunteer and advocate for raising awareness for mental health and other important causes affecting women and families. And today we are talking about a vow and commitment to self-love. So welcome, Bonnielee. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Yes, I am too. And just from your introduction here, I mean, you have done and had your hands in a lot of different things. So this should be a really fun conversation.
Thank you. Yes, I know I have, I very much am passionate about a lot of things, and I tend to follow those passion projects. And it's been a really incredible journey. So I feel very blessed and grateful for that.
Absolutely. And I would imagine this vow or commitment to self-love is a common denominator across everything, right? Because it all starts with us.
Absolutely. It's definitely sitting in a place where you know who you are and the things that you want to experience in your life, and being strong enough, but also really brave enough to go after those things. Because sometimes, fear can hold you back from doing that.
Yeah. Oh, so true. So let's talk about that. Your own vow and commitment to self-love. I know that you had mentioned you were on a 1-year journey to discover self-love and free yourself from different strongholds. So I'm wondering if you could dive into that a bit with us. I would love to hear more about it.
Yes, I'm actually 10 months in. And it will be in August. We'll make 1 year. So I was in a emotionally and mentally abusive relationship with someone, and it was a really toxic time in my life. Oddly enough, it was also one of the most special times in my life because it was simultaneously when I was living off the grid and just experiencing this really great, incredible lifestyle. The person I was with was just really toxic and really vile, and it was just a really terrible environment to be in. And at the time, I really, as much as this person, he had NPD, so narcissistic personality disorder. As much as he had this, I really do take accountability and hold myself responsible for staying in that situation a little too long. So after I left that situation, I decided to go on a 1-year journey for self-discovery and just learn to love myself. So no dating, not seeking love in others, not choosing to do things that were unhealthy in my life. Even just recently, I gave up drinking socially. I wasn't someone that drank often, but I did socially, and I even, let that go. So on this journey, it was really just about spending time with myself, because I realized that, I had been married before that for over a decade to my son's father. He's a really great person, and thankfully we have a really healthy relationship. And it meant learning to be alone, not necessarily filling that space with things or noise or conversations. It really just meant sometimes sitting. I
Yeah.
traveled a lot. I really developed my friendships with, my soul sisters. My best friend is someone that I love dearly, and she and I talk often, and we really just traveled and held space for each other. I spent time with my family and my son, and it really meant just getting to a place where I was happy and content with myself. So that I wasn't trying to seek these things in other people to fill these voids within myself. And what I ended up realizing was that I actually liked myself. I liked spending
Mhm.
time with myself. And
Yes, good thing,
yeah,
right?
sometimes you're really afraid. You're like, I don't know if this is what I really want to do. I don't know if I can, sit here.
Yeah.
It's been really fun. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've experienced different things. I continue to learn about myself, and I was just telling my mother actually recently, I'm like, I think, I'm going to extend this journey until I'm even more comfortable. Like right now, I just enjoy my time.
Mm.
And it's been restorative, it's been empowering, it's been cathartic, because there was a season where there was anger, there was sadness, there was frustration, there was pain, and being able to sit with that and push through it was really important because sometimes we tend to want to like push that down and not
Mhm.
experience that, but these moments really teach you things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so much we can unpack there, and I'm grateful that you shared that. You know, just a few key points that stood out to me. Number one, I know I can relate, and I'm sure everybody listening can relate on some level. Like you said, it's filling those gaps or looking for love, whether it's through a partner, friendships. Some people it's alcohol, food, drugs. I mean, there's Netflix. I mean, there's so many different things. And not that we can't do these different things, but is it something that you're using to cope because you don't want to face the fact that one of the most uncomfortable things for myself for a long time was literally just sitting with myself, much
Mhm.
like you said. Can I sit and be with myself and do that in quiet without feeling the need to pick up my phone and jump on Instagram or, whatever it is, these little things that we do?
Exactly. And it's such a really important journey to go on. And I mean, we're sort of taught to be distracted.
Yeah.
We're conditioned by society and even sometimes the people around us to just be distracted and find distractions. So
Mhm.
like you said, whether going on our phones or, you know, picking up the phone and just being engaged or television or, and this journey was really important because it sort of broke me open, so
Mhm.
that I can build myself back up to who I really was, who I was meant to be, and develop, really solid coping skills, really healthy boundaries, learning to set boundaries. And that sort of trickled over in every relationship in my life.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, yes, just teaching myself and others, hey, this is what I'm comfortable with and this is what I'm not comfortable with. And it's okay for me to advocate for myself and not feel bad about that.
Mhm. So it sounds like, and I love that you're like basically on the tail end of it right now, but
Yeah.
still in it, which is really, really cool because you're speaking from such a present, powerful place. Was this really an intentional thing when you first started this, Bonnie? Like, I'm going to take this year to
Mhm.
date myself and to, really foster the relationship with myself.
It was definitely intentional. I needed that time. Diving into a little bit about the relationship, the person I was with would anytime I was on a creative journey and working, I've been very blessed to own a business and really tap into every project that I'm passionate about. And it was always breaking me down emotionally,
Mm,
mentally, a lot of gaslighting, a lot of love bombing. And these are terms, that if you know about a narcissist, they'll make you feel like you're the number one person in the world. And in one quick swift, they'll bring you right down. It
right.
was making me believe that I know we just had this conversation. I know what you said, and making me feel like I completely imagined the whole thing and I was
Mhm.
delusional. So that tears away at you, and it really breaks you down, and you lose yourself. And I had already, I went from being married for so long, and then, when you go through a divorce, I think everyone's done it. You sort of just date, and then, I went right into a relationship. So I didn't know what it was like to just be with myself. And, you know, I've always been body positive, but, deep down inside, like who I really was, I wasn't as confident as I thought I was. And it allowed this person to have a lot of control over my life. And over time, this past year, I realized how distant I had become from my family, friends, and being immersed in that situation, I didn't even realize that. And there are a lot of times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a really intelligent woman. How could this have happened? But it has nothing to do with intelligence or anything.
Right.
It's definitely those types of relationships with these types of people. They're manipulative, and they see your weakness, and they really take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, because I love this conversation, and it's not like I don't know anybody that said, you know what, let me date this narcissist, or I'm going to
Mhm.
go and date this guy that is going to physically abuse me or whatever. And yes, I too, and I'm sure many of the individuals listening have been in those types of relationships or something similar in different ways. But what I challenge everybody to do is to look at the relationships around you, whether it's your partner or even friendships, like you talked about setting boundaries. If there are individuals in your life and you're starting to recognize these patterns and more you're not feeling, in my own words and way that it makes sense to me, it's like good overall in the relationship, then there's something that you need to look at for yourself. Why are you allowing yourself to stay with that person or connected to them in whatever way? What is it that's keeping you there?
Exactly. And, I was crying a lot. So, I was hurting every day. And it's like, this isn't normal. This isn't what it's supposed to feel like. Like you said,
Yeah.
you're supposed to feel happy and healthy and good. And I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good about myself. I didn't feel good, about the situation. And I had left several times, but this last time I was just done for so many reasons. My son, you know, had experienced this with me. And, he was a teenager, or he is a teenager. He was a
Mhm.
teenager at the time. And, he said, Mom, I don't want to see you. I don't butt in, but I don't want to see you hurting like this. And it's not okay. And my son literally asked me to choose between him and this other person. And it was my
Oh,
son.
wow.
Um, and that was like the light, that was my light at
Yeah.
the end of the tunnel. I was done. And I committed to 1 year of not dating, 1 year of really learning to love myself, 1 year of making mistakes, 1 year of, stumbling along. But it's been really neat because there's all these things about myself that, I'm never going to compromise on. There
Mhm.
are things about myself that I definitely want to work on. I found through this process, like I'm very angry. I think that's sort of an after effect of being in this type of situation, and it's something that I'm
Mhm.
working on. Um, you know, it's been an adventure as well because there's so many things I now see for my life and in my future, and I'm working towards that. And it's empowering,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be a good role model for my son, and he's a really good, incredibly smart teenager, a human, and I wanted him to be like